Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Go ahead and pull up a chair, get comfortable, and let's just have some real talk for a bit. For the next few minutes, think of me as your big brother or maybe your personal relationship coach. Because today, we're unpacking something that is deeply personal and honestly, incredibly frustrating for anyone who's had to live through it. We're going to untangle all that crazy emotional confusion of toxic relationships and give you the actual tools you need to reclaim your personal narrative. So let me ask you something. Have you ever been lied to so elaborately, so convincingly that you literally started to doubt your own sanity? You know the feeling, right? It's that deep, painful cognitive dissonance where your gut is screaming at you that something's wrong, but your partner is sitting there looking you right in the eyes, spinning this massive web of excuses that almost kind of sound plausible. Well, if you have been there, I want to validate that feeling right now. You weren't overthinking, you were just being underlied to. Section 1. The setup, how the trap is laid. Okay, let's dive right into this. Because to completely dismantle manipulation, we really have to understand the psychological mechanics of how the trap is actually laid in the first place. These toxic situations don't just start with obvious lies. They start with a perfectly orchestrated setup designed to completely disarm you. It usually kicks off with a massive red flag that unfortunately we often mistake for romance. Forced intimacy. Basically, a manipulator is going to share these deep, heavy secrets far, far too soon. It feels like vulnerability, sure, but actually it's just calculated boundary testing dressed up as care. They manufacture this super accelerated sense of closeness to bypass your normal healthy defenses, so you let your guard down way before you actually know who they are. And here is exactly why it's so incredibly hard to just walk away when things start feeling off. A genuine connection, that grows organically over time. But a manipulator's tactic, which you've probably heard called love bombing, creates this intense, immediate chemical high in your brain. It's a massive dopamine rush. Your brain gets hooked on this overwhelming validation. So later, when the lies start piling up, your brain is literally fighting your own intuition because it just wants that initial dopamine hit back. Section 2. The predictable cycle. 3 phases of manipulation. Once they've bypassed those defenses of yours, the manipulator follows a script. And I really want to shift our focus to pattern recognition right now, because the absolute most empowering thing you can learn is that these manipulators are never as original as they think they are. No way. They always follow a highly predictable cycle. Clinically speaking, the cycle of narcissistic enchantment goes exactly like this. Step 1 is idealization. That's the love bombing phase we just talked about, where you are the absolute center of their universe. Step 2 is devaluation. This is the big shift. The affection suddenly drops, the lies begin, and the confusion sets in. And finally, step 3, discard. The exit, where they basically leave you to pick up the pieces. Recognizing this framework is absolutely the first step to organizing all your emotional chaos. Section 3, the red flag playbook. Spotting orchestrated lies. Let's move into that devaluation phase and look at some hard, real-world evidence. We're going to treat this case study involving a guy named Spence and his partner Natalia as basically a courtroom exhibit of how these orchestrated lies operate. So picture this. At 7 p.m., Natalia texts Spence, "Babe, there's no power on this side. Let me get myself dinner before the phone goes off." Okay, seems innocent. Then at 10 p.m., "Babe, I have a headache. Good night." Just 2 minutes later at 10:02, Spence calls her. No answer. Fast forward to 10:30 p.m. After Spence goes on a frantic search, it turns out Natalia wasn't where she said she was at all, and the call logs on her phone were completely wiped clean. The next day, she claimed her phone died and she dozed off, acting totally shocked, asking, "Who died? Why so many missed calls?" Now, what's really interesting here is the sheer desperation of a manipulator trying to cover their tracks. During all these power outage excuses, Spence actually texted a neighbor to check on things, using a phone number Natalia had previously claimed belonged to a guy named Tom. And guess what? The neighbor corroborated Natalia's story perfectly, even assuring Spence that Natalia loved him. But Spence soon figured out the number wasn't Tom's. It was Stacy's, Natalia's best friend. Even wilder, at one point, Natalia actually got on the phone and did a voice impression, literally playing 2 roles to catfish Spence into believing the neighbor was a real person. So remember this quote, "Truth doesn't need Kenya power to work. Lies need a blackout plus fake witnesses." If your partner's story requires massive infrastructure, fake verifications, and literal voice acting to make sense, for sure, they're hiding something. The real truth does not need an actor. And you'll be able to spot these fake witnesses so easily when you just stay calm and perform quiet reality checks. Section 4. The accomplices. Perjury with a smile. The thing is, manipulators rarely operate completely alone. They rely heavily on accomplices, like Natalia's best friend, Stacy, who act as enablers, constantly validating deceptive narratives and committing what we can really only call perjury with a smile. These accomplices use specific maneuvers to keep you completely trapped in the lie. Like when Spence couldn't reach Natalia, Stacy literally blocked his number. When he finally got through using a cousin's phone, Stacy gaslit him, saying, "Spence, you're overthinking, she loves you." Stacy offered to call Natalia to check on her, but Spence found out later that no call was ever made. Stacy knew exactly where Natalia was the whole time. And then, to cap it all off, the call logs between the two women were completely wiped. Which brings us to an absolutely crucial takeaway. When someone has to lie for her, believe the silence, not the script. That is not a friend trying to help your relationship. That is an accomplice. I strongly urge you, trust those quiet reality checks. Do not fall for the rehearsed scripts of an accomplice who is literally just trying to manage your perception and keep you under control. Section 5. Reclaiming power, neutralizing control with silence. So how do you beat this? How do you take back your reality from someone who is running a whole circus? We're moving into the actionable coaching phase of this explainer right now. And the ultimate cure, the absolute best way to neutralize a manipulator's control is simply silence. When Spence finally just stopped replying, the texts from Natalia came flooding in. Dust is constant. Umewan domana huingi online, which translates roughly to accusing him of being married, and that's why he isn't online. I'm tired of pestering you. You see, she wasn't missing Spence. She was missing the control. When you stop playing their game, a manipulator's ego gets totally frantic, and they text you over and over because they realize they're losing their grip on you. So here is your playbook for taking your power back. First, go strictly no contact. Second, stop seeking closure from a liar. You will never get the truth from them, only more infrastructure. When those desperate, ego-driven texts inevitably roll in, leave them on read. Do not reply. Your silence makes them struggle to maintain their false narrative, and honestly, it's louder than any paragraph you could possibly type out. Let them finally meet the person who just stopped chasing. Section 6. Setting boundaries, rebuilding intuitive trust. Now, once you've established that silence, you enter the final stage, which is healing. It's time to reset your personal boundaries and rebuild that intuitive trust that all the gaslighting slowly chipped away at. And this brilliantly illustrates the dynamic we're talking about. Spence actually offered Natalia a mature exit, a break, or maybe a structured calling schedule. But she declined, saying no need, we are good, all while secretly seeing another man. She just wanted to keep him around as a confused option. So you have to choose. Are you going to accept the circus of being an option with all this false emotional urgency, or will you demand what you actually deserve, which is consistency, dignity, and truth? Consistency is an absolute requirement for healthy relationships, not dramatic cycles. Rebuilding your self-trust means you really have to practice these mindsets daily. You must identify and reject that forced intimacy right out of the gate. Stop listening to rehearsed scripts and start trusting what people actually do with their actions. Remember, being someone's option is a terrible trade-off. Choose your dignity over feeding a manipulator's ego and absolutely demand consistency instead of getting sucked into dramatic, chaotic cycles. This is exactly how you protect yourself from falling for that false emotional urgency ever again. So what does this all mean for you? The manipulator tried to write your story for you, right? A story where you're the one who is confused, overthinking, and constantly chasing them. But guess what? You hold the pen now. So will you accept the circus, or will you choose to write a narrative of consistency and truth for yourself today? Trust your gut, hold those boundaries firm, and let your silence do all the talking. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer of today's source material, and I'll catch you on the next one.